All right, so let's talk a little bit about GitHub Desktop and what it is, what it's not, and what we can do with it if you want to really work with it. So, what is GitHub Desktop from the people that created GitHub Desktop, the people behind GitHub? Well, they say it's experience Git without the struggle. For some people, doing Git with a command line can seem a little bit challenging. And, well, that's understandable. That's very understandable because a lot of that seems very cryptic. What are you doing? What are you doing with all those git add commit, push, pull, log, diff, and whatnot commands, branch, and then maybe you're not really understanding. You can't really visualize what's going on. Now, when I started learning Git and GitHub, we didn't have GitHub Desktop, and slowly it has gotten much better. Now, something to point out: the GitHub Desktop plays much better with a Mac than with the Windows and WSL Ubuntu Linux ecosystem. Um, so if you do have a Mac, you're gonna have a much easier time setting this up. But if you're on Windows and using WSL2, which I assume that you're familiar with that, and I will assume that you're familiar both with Git and the command line and the terminal and a little bit of directories, file directories in the command line as well, because we're going to be kind of talking about that as well. So without further ado, let's maybe take a look at here, right? And this is kind of like the end. What it's going to look like in the end. GitHub Desktop allows us to do pretty much a lot of the same things that we did in Git, but to have a nice visualized history about it. We can instead of working with the command line, instead of doing everything with some people could say cryptic commands, we can do it with push of a button. Do we want to commit something? We push a button commit. Do we want to take a look at what changed? Well, we can look at it in the GUI tool. Okay, well, let's set this up. Let's see what we can do with it. And I'm going to reset my settings on this Ubuntu instance to default. So I'll go through the setup process with you. So it maybe could be a little bit less intimidating to set it up. So just to review, what are we gonna need? Well, we're gonna need a GitHub account. We're gonna need a token. Let's go make that token too. Just like, and again, I will say this again and again. I assume that you have done the previous Git and the command line units so that you know what's going on before moving on to GitHub Desktop, because that will be much, much, much more helpful. We'll make a token. So in our settings, in our developer settings, you want to make a personal access token, a classic token. I already have one GitHub Desktop token here, so let's make a new one. A classic token will be fine. A GitHub Desktop 2. We will select everything because, this is your Git repository and we're not really doing anything top secret here just yet. So everything that's here, you can you can have access towards. Okay, great. Generate token. All right, so we're gonna need this token later. So I'll copy it to the clipboard for now, but let's not close it yet. Maybe put it somewhere at the side in the text file, because you will need to copy that in. Next, we will go ahead and start installing GitHub Desktop. And now we actually need to sign in, so we'll do that. Of course, it opens up on a different monitor. So I'll go and throw in my test account, and hopefully I remember my password. All right. So I'm going to authorize GitHub Desktop. Now, sometimes on a Mac, you, it might actually open up right here and ask you for your token. So this is where you would put in the token. If it takes you to the GitHub sign up page, then you sign up with then you sign in with a password. If it's if it's within the if it's within the installer, then you will sign up with the token instead of your password. So we'll continue, and we here have a couple of options. I guess I will grant all repositories because I want GitHub Desktop to manage my GitHub repositories and full access and basically all of the defaults. We don't have to really worry about. We don't really have to really worry about honing down each permission. Okay, and then depending on your operating system, it will either kick you back to here or you might have to do it manually. And then we have the following, right? So this is use to identify the commits. So use my GitHub account name and email address. You can do a manual configuration. That's really uh, up to you, but the defaults usually work just fine. Okay, and now we are here. We are actually now within GitHub Desktop. It is connected to my GitHub. As you can see, there's some repositories in this test account which we play around with for learning purposes and whatnot. And we can create new repositories. Now, if you're on the Mac, you can skip over the next section when until we start creating a new repository. If you're on Windows and using WSL2, there's going to be some more configuration because we don't want to be saving this in my documents. We actually want to be pointing to our Linux folders, whatnot. And of course, we are going to need to use the Git integration, not within command prompt with Windows, but pointed from command prompt to the custom shell, which is going to be our Ubuntu installation. So that's going to be a little bit of a pain. Like I said, it's much better integrated with a Mac. But if you're a little stuck, if you're using WSL2 and Ubuntu Linux on Windows, then check out the attached handout for all of the things that I'm about to be putting into the terminal here and copying pasting into the terminal. And again, if you're on a Mac, just start on the next chapter where we start going through the first repository. Okay, so this is for my Ubuntu Linux running on Windows WSL2 users, because now we actually have a bit of a setup to do for GitHub Desktop if you want to use it on Ubuntu Linux or any other Linux distribution on WSL. And it was not really designed to be used that way, but we can do that. Again, on a Mac, you can just skip this over and go into the next parts where we start playing around with commits. But here we have a problem. The main problem is, so let's say we have our project folder, right? And if we open this up in here, your on Windows, your Linux distribution is going to be installed with its own virtual file system. So everything, so you have your Windows file system, and then within that, you will have your Linux file system, and that's where you're going to have your projects. So I've created a project directory. You can name it something else. I would suggest it being projects just for ease of use, but it's all up to you. So all the projects will go here, just like this Mach 1 here, and we'll create more. The first thing that needs to happen is, well, if we go into our repository, we need to first configure. So we'll go into the options, and in here, for our integrations, we need to have a custom shell. Essentially, we need to tell Git that we are going to be running Git not from Windows, but actually from Ubuntu within WSL2. And here it got it for me automatically, oddly enough, but probably in a fresh installation, you might not get it automatically. So what you need to do is go over to the project and you will say which Git. And it's user bin Git. Okay, so that's fine. And again, take a look at the handout as well. So our WSL is essentially the directory for it looks something like this. This is where it's running, the version here, so whatever the version that you're running, and then user bin git. Notice that we have to put the slashes essentially in the Windows way. Technically, it's the UNC path, whereas the Linux paths are with these forward slashes. Here, these are backslashes. So how do we find out our Ubuntu version? Well, we can go and say, well, WSL list. And I'm running two different ones. My go-to is 22.04, which I suggest you'd use. Hopefully you're using that already if you're running that on Windows. 24.04 is fine. Somehow still very buggy. 22.04 is much more stable. However, I am running 24.04 here. At least I believe so. So I will need to be pointing it to 24.04, which is right here. So this is our directory. Take a look at my directory here. WSL localhost Ubuntu-24.04, just as it is right here, and then user bin, as we had it here, but with backslashes. So user bin, and then it should figure it out. If you make a mistake, for example, if I do something like so, usually GitHub Desktop will say, like, look, I cannot see a Git instance on this path, so you're doing something wrong. So it's you're not going to put in the wrong path and then things won't work. I mean, the GitHub Desktop will resolve this path as long as everything is correct here. So that's fine. Visual Studio Code is what we will use, so that's all right. And in here, we already have everything set up. Usually with your login, you would have it set up. If not, you might have to git config global username and git config global user email in your Ubuntu terminal. So something like so. So global user.name, and this would be your username here. And that's in the handout as well. But assuming you have done the git and GitHub course already, so this should be configured in your terminal already. Okay, so we will save that integration, meaning that when GitHub Desktop runs, it will use the Git program within Ubuntu, not within Windows. So that's fine. So now let's try to create a repository. And if everything goes fine creating a new repository, then you're all set. Otherwise, we're gonna have to do some changes still. So I'll create a new repository. Now, for you, you might have something like C documents, something Git repos, or something like that. Again, this is not where we want to put these things, because we want to be running within the Ubuntu, so within the Ubuntu ecosystem, within our Ubuntu installation. Because if you put this in within the Windows, my documents or whatever, my project, see my project, something like that, you will have problems with libraries missing. Let's say if you have Node.js installed in Ubuntu and you need Node.js, but it's not installed on Windows because this is within its own ecosystem here, right? It won't see what's going on above there. Essentially, this is where we want to get to. So if we open up my 24.04 home username projects, this is where we want to get to. This is where we want to point GitHub Desktop to. How do we do that? Well, we need another string, and again, it's in the handout, very similar to where we pointed Git to. Let's open this up. and it's going to be WSL localhost, your Ubuntu version, home. Now your username in Ubuntu, so that's for me, and then project or whatever you call the folder, and we will initialize the repository, and we will make whatever MIT license, whatnot. So new repository, and this is going to be a new repository. Now, if you click on this, so see here it says the repository will be created within WSL, within Ubuntu 24.04, home, theory, projects, and then new repository. So we should have it come up here, right here. We should have a new folder. Now, if you create and everything's fine, then you're done. We'll skip over the next couple of minutes. However, what you're probably going to get is something like so. Dubious ownership in repository, something, an exception, git config global, safe directory. Isn't Linux fun, right? Well, again, on the Mac, this would be like these permissions are not an issue because it's kind of like plug and play. But here, what GitHub essentially is telling us, we have two operating systems essentially. We got Windows running, so I got Windows PowerShell, for example. So this is our Windows PowerShell, and that's running right now. I'm running 24.4 Ubuntu in here, but GitHub says, you know what? I don't trust this. I don't trust this repository that you have open for me. What do you mean by that? What do you mean you don't trust it? Well, let's take a look. Again, let's take a look at what it means here. We'll open this up. And by the way, repository was created. Okay? New repository was created. And we'll open this up. And it's right here. It's here. And it's within this Linux 24.4 home username projects and new repository. But GitHub Desktop is saying like, hey, look, you have Git ecosystem running in Windows, and you also have Git ecosystem running within Linux. So Windows running Linux, running Ubuntu, running another Git, running another Git program essentially. And GitHub Desktop is saying, you know what? I'm not sure if this is your, if you know, I really do not know if this is what you want because I'm reaching over from one operating system to another, from one Git program installed on Windows, so GitHub Desktop, which is running on Windows, to Linux, running on Windows within Windows, and I'm reaching over to it, and I'm really not sure if if that's what you need, if that's what you need me to do. Now it says it gives you a suggestion. Says, hey, if this is correct, then you might want to add this with this scary prefix, whatnot, and just tell me that this is going to be safe. So this directory is safe. Which we could do that, and we could do that for every repository, and that would be really, really, really annoying. What we're going to do instead is essentially tell Windows and Git running on Windows that everything going forward into Ubuntu is going to be just fine. It's safe. It's my computer. I know what I'm doing. So I'll cancel out of this. I'll remove this, and I'll probably remove this junk repository here. Now, what we need to do is go to PowerShell, not WSL, but PowerShell. So, like if you're running Windows Terminal, you want to open up Windows PowerShell right here. And what we need to throw in is a couple of commands. And again, that's in the handout. So check the handout out. I'm just gonna copy and paste, and I'm gonna walk you through them. First, we're gonna say, hey, git config global, add save directory, star, kind of like pretty much everything. Followed by WSL localhost Ubuntu 24.04 or whatever version you're running. If you're running 22.04, you do 22.04. If you're running 24.04, you're running 18 point something. This is the one that you're that you want to. There we go. This is the one that you want to put in here. So since I'm running this within 24.04, I'm gonna put in 24.04. If I was doing this for my everyday use to 22.04, this one I would put in 22.04. Enter here as well. And now I also want to add the project directory. Now technically this kind of catch all should do this, but we'll be specific so it doesn't fight us. And here we have, right, 24, the version, home. Now here, your username is going to be your Ubuntu username. If you want to figure out your username, if you forgot, you can just say, who am I? And this is my username. So whatever your username is, this is where you want to create this. Make sure you create the projects directory as well. So if you haven't done that yet, so you will make their projects in here. I already have it, so it says, hey, he cannot create it, it already exists. And we will throw that in here as well. Okay. For actually, to be safe, let's restart this. I'll just restart everything, restart the whole instance. So I would even say WSL shut down, exit everything, restart the computer, and then I will start up GitHub Desktop again. And that's where the Mac users come back to us as well. All right, so hopefully everything restarted. And welcome back, Mac users, with all your plug and play things. So let's create a new repository. So let's review. We have logged in into GitHub. We do know Git and GitHub fundamentals using the command line. So all we want to do is actually just kind of get ourselves acquainted to the GitHub Desktop GUI. And honestly, I do sometimes use it on my MacBook, but I am kind of like an old dinosaur with the command line Git. I'm only beginning to use the VS Code Git tools. But times change, and honestly, the GitHub Desktop is pretty good. So let's do a new repository. Let's make a new repository. And if you're in Linux, if you set your directory correctly, then you should have it here. You might need to create one first before it comes up as default. Once you create one, then everything will default to your projects directory. If you're on a Mac, choose whatever you want to put it. Desktop projects, desktop assignments, who cares? And we will initialize it with a README, and we'll say new films or just movies. We'll call movies, okay? So, movies repo. Great. So we don't need a git ignore. We're just going to be working with text files, where this is going to be very language agnostic, and whatever license. Nobody is going to copy this brilliant code anyway. So we'll create this repository. And now we have a new repo. If we go back to our terminal, if we cd into projects, we have our movies. We can open this up now. The movies, and I'm using on my ZCH, ZSH. So I do have a little bit of a better, well, not better, but verbose terminal readouts. This is not really about the terminal, but so it's telling me I'm in projects, movies, and on branch main. So my terminal is also Git enabled, so to speak. But okay, let's do everything within GitHub Desktop. So let's try not to touch the terminal command line, and let's just try to use GitHub Desktop and see how it actually is compared to using Git and GitHub in the command line. So we may have a new repository. We have a history here. So for now, nothing. We have a license. We have README, which we did, a movies repo. And it is in this initial test account what we set it to. Okay, we do have branches. So current branch main. Do we have any other branch? We don't. We have a new branch button right here. Okay. We have something called publish, but we'll come back to that. So let's go back and let's make some changes. Let's jump in here. Now, GitHub Desktop is not by itself a code editor. So we set our code editor to be Visual Studio Code so we can open this up in here. So let's open this up in Visual Studio Code. And we are within our branch main. Let's start adding some movies in. So movies.txt. And let's add in some, I don't know, fellowship. Towers, towers, and the return of the king. All right, so we have initial 3 movies. Now let's go back to desktop. Now this is updating real time. So if we were on 2 different screens, so like if like let's say like if I had 2 monitors set up, I would see updates pop up. In fact, we can actually see if maybe I'll put this on split screen, and then we will see things being changed. All right, so split screen, kind of crowded, but so GitHub Desktop here, VS Code here. Let's make something else. In addition to the movies, we'll have a series .txt, and we'll have Rings of Power, for example, and we will save this. Let's come back here, and now see we have series.txt, Rings of Power, and whatnot. Let's add something to movies. The Hobbit. Okay, save. Go back here, and now we have The Hobbit, which we just added. So if we're working on a multi-monitor setup, it's kind of a neat way of seeing things changing. What's being changed and whatnot. You can keep track of things. Once you start, a lot of things are on the screen, have fun with the RAM usage, but it's a tool. It's a nice GUI tool. So let's do a commit. So we will have a commit summary. This is our commit message essentially. Add initial movies and series. Description. This is a longer description. I don't need a long description here, but this is going to be something like the start of our movie store. Something like that. This is where like I would maybe describe more in detail. So there's a commit message and there's a longer description here. And we're committing this to main. Okay. Now we can go to history. Right? The license is in here. The readme is in here. That's fine. But if we go to the next one, we'll see that movies.txt is added, series.txt is added. We have two changed files. This is our changes. So what essentially has added 6 lines were added. So 5 lines here, 1 line here. That's our first commit. Let's do another one. Let's go to the movies and say we want to add the distillation of smog. And I love 5 armies. And we want to do another commit. Now, if we go to changes, we see that there are some new changes. The distillation of smog is here. Battle of 5 arms is here. And add more our movies. Expanding the library. And commit to main. And again, here with this two screen split screen view, things are getting crowded, right? But if I'm working with multi screen setup, it definitely can be a good way of keeping track of things. Oh, what has happened since the last commit? Okay, this has happened. Okay, all right. So that's the last one. This is the first one, and so on. So much more visual rather than going into our terminal here and we're saying, okay, git log and start going through actual commits here with our diff commands and whatnot, right? So again, it really just becomes a matter of preference. Let's go back to our GitHub desktop and work on actually getting this to GitHub. What do I mean by that? Well, we go back here in my test account. You see that there's this repository which we called movies is not here. So how do we grab it, right, and push it up? Well, remember before we had to actually go and create a new repository. So we would need to go create a new repo in here. Um, Make sure they're linked within our Git in our terminal, and then push the changes, and then branches would be essentially reconciled. So it would push from local to a remote repo. This is actually probably the cool one of the cool parts about it because we can. This is actually much more streamlined. So we can go and we have push, fetch, remove, open shell, show, and explorer. We can go to publish. So what do we want to call it? Well, we want to call it movies. Do we have a movies repo? Nope, we do not. Description: the movies repo. Keep this code private so that this says, hey, is it going to be a private repository? No, it's going to be a public one. So a little less options. It's like a very streamlined. Essentially, this is saying, hey, I'm going to create a new GitHub repo. It's going to be called movies. This is going to be its description. It's going to be public. And the moment you click publish repository, the moment you click it, I'm gonna take everything that you have locally and publish it to GitHub into your account. But this is gonna be a public repo unless I want to make it private. So I will then publish it. Now this is going to be running through a few things. Again, if you are on Ubuntu and Windows WSL, you might get a pop-up for your token. This is where I said you will need to keep that token. That token, you will need to put this in here. And it should be just fine. It should save it from there. If you're on a Mac, keychain should have already taken care of that when you have logged in into GitHub Desktop the first time. All right, let's go back to our test account. Now we have our movies repo. Great. And these are our commits. One was some minutes ago, another one was very recently. One branch, and so on. So, kind of the same thing as we were doing with the terminal, with the command line, but more in a GUI way. So let's next take a look at how to do some branching, how to delete some files, and how to update our repository as well. All right, branching, right? So before we were doing commands like git branch, right? We only have the main branch here, and if we want to go to a different branch, we would do git checkout branch, and then we would make a branch essentially. So check out a branch and whatnot. Well, we can do the same thing with GitHub Desktop, but kind of like more a point and click situation. So here is our current repository. Here's our current branch, and here's our fetch origin. The moment we click fetch origin, it will update everything from GitHub. We'll see what that means in a little bit, but let's focus on branching first. Let's say I want to do a new branch and I want to work on TV series. Let's make a new branch called TV series. So we'll go from main to TV series. So we'll create a branch. Now we see that our current branch is TV series. How is that reflected in our terminal? If we refresh our terminal, it's also in TV series. How is that reflected in our VS Code? Well, VS Code is a little bit can be a little bit laggy behind that because in here our branch is still main. So this is kind of like the odd thing with GitHub Desktop. Again, if you're on a Mac, it might be a little bit more responsive for that, but you also have to double check it just to make sure that you're on the same branch there. So just to make sure, I mean, I can switch here to TV series in VS Code, so I can do that, or I can go back to GitHub Desktop. I can go into our summary, changes in history, and I can say, you know what, I'm going to uh, open this up in VS Code. So open Visual Studio Code. All right, now our branch is TV series. So this is something to keep an eye on. Just to make sure that your editor is on the same page as GitHub Desktop, which is running the editor. All right, so let's put it on two screens or split screen technically. And let's add some more to TV series here. Let's open up TV series and I don't know, we'll add some Stranger Things. We'll add some of that. And I don't know, whatever else is going on streaming right now. I don't even know. But let's say two things we have added. Okay. So once again, we see that on the TV series branch, there are some things that are being changed. Now you see that GitHub Desktop actually says, okay, so this line is being replaced by all three lines. So technically, we didn't do anything. So take a look at VS Code. So VS Code interprets it a little bit differently. It says, hey, these are the three new lines here. Oh, two new lines here, technically. There we go. Let's save that. Let's come back. So these are the two new lines here, but this was already here. But GitHub Desktop, their visualization is a little bit different. It says, hey, these are the new lines. This is also kind of new because this one line is now these three lines. So their approach to visualizing the changes is a bit different, but essentially it says, hey, this was before, this is now. That's kind of like their approach. And we'll say, okay, well, what's our commit message? Add to popular series. Building up, I don't know, building up more in TV. And I will commit this, and this is committing it to TV series. So we see where we're committing it to which branch. Great. Let's check. Let's check out what's going on our GitHub. Well, we have one branch, just the main one, right? Okay, so we need to push this up. And remember how we did that before? Something like not git push origin main, but git push origin, and then whatever the branch name is. So it will be git push origin TV series, but a bit more simpler. We'll say publish branch. It will figure out what the commands are. And now we have this branch. We have two branches in here. The first one, the main one, and the TV series. Great. We'll not worry about pull requests at the moment. But let's see what we can do. What if we want to reconcile them? right? Because if we go to our main branch, we can say, hey, in our series, we don't have all the other TV series. In our TV series, we do have the TV series. So a couple of ways of doing this. We can do it on the GitHub Desktop side. So if we wanted to create a pull request to our project manager, whatnot, we would say preview pull request. We open it up here and say, hey, I want these changes. So let's say you don't have the power to merge the branches. So you made some changes on the different branch, and then you say, hey, I want these changes to be reflected in our main production code. So preview pull request, create pull request, and that would be in reflected as a pull request in the main branch for, let's say, your project manager. Well, we are kind of like responsible for everything here, so we can actually merge them together ourselves. Now, how do we do that? Well, let's go back here. So we have branches here. So repository, branches, and fetch origin. Remember, every time we press this, it will refresh from GitHub. We'll say, okay, let's go to main branch. So we switched over back to main within GitHub Desktop. And we'll say, okay, choose a branch to merge into main. So we'll choose a branch to merge into main, and we'll merge TV series. So this is the equivalent of saying git merge, whatever that command is, main TV series, or the other way around. Not now I'm getting myself confused. This is we are saying here is like, hey, now we are in main branch. There are changes on TV series which are updated. So now I'm going to take everything that's in the TV series and then merge them together. Great. And then I can also now push. So I'm pushing up the changes that I've just merged. So if I push and we go back to GitHub Desktop, GitHub, let's refresh. Now our main branch reflects the changes we made in Stranger in the TV series branch. So again, the same thing that we did with the terminal commands, but a little bit more, well, visual, so to say. What if you want to delete things? Well, let's do something like that. Let's go back and create something else. Let's create actors. .txt. And we'll have something like Mortensen. I have no idea if that's how you spell his name, but that's fine. We'll throw in a couple more. Orlando Bloom and the great late Ian McKellen. And let's actually update. Okay, we are in branch main, and we have something new. One change file actors, right? Okay, so we have three things. So create actors list, starting a database of actors, commit to main, because we are in main branch. Probably should have been doing a different branch if you want to keep it very separate. One branch is working on series, one branch working on movies. But we'll do that. And we'll commit. And now, from here, we will update, push origin. My muscle memory is like, okay, I need to actually git push and whatnot, and not look for a button. Okay. Now let's create a new branch. Well, before we create a new branch, let's go to TV series. Let's go to TV series. Now, on the TV series, we see that there's no local changes. But there is something interesting. And pause to maybe think about what we need to do to TV series to update that. Well, take a look here. As far as TV series branch is concerned, these actors, it doesn't know about them. Well, what do we mean by that? Well, we created this on main. Let's go back to our GitHub. Let's go back to our GitHub. So our actors exist on the main branch, which we just pushed away. But on the TV series, we don't have that. So let's reconcile first. Again, we go into the TV series. So we are in recent branch TV series. And I'm going to choose a branch to merge. So we're going to say, you know what? Please get me updated to the main branch. So now it's kind of like vice versa. The main branch is updated, but TV series is behind. Great. So now we know of this actors. And you know what? Just because we probably should update that on GitHub as well. So we'll push that up. Push it up to origin. Go back to GitHub. Now, if we look at our branch TV series, now it knows about the actors. Okay. Now, what if you wanted to delete something? Well, you know what? Maybe we don't want to have series anymore. We'll make something like miniseries.txt and shows.txt. So something like Friends or sitcoms. Let's do that. Sitcoms.txt. Friends, yeah, that's a sitcom. Cheers, uh, Modern Family. And miniseries, well, they're miniseries, right? Fargo. And of course, Rings of Power, Stranger Things. Well, I don't know if Stranger Things would be a miniseries at this point because there's so many seasons. But you know what? Let's keep it as is. And we will now then delete this series. Now, if you're on WSL2 on Windows, you might have something like this. Because when we're using a GUI tool, Windows wants to move it to the recycle bin, but we are within Linux right now, going back to Windows, so literally an operating system with an operating system. So it can't, long story short, it can't put the file from the Ubuntu distribution into the recycle bin. Technically, on a Mac, you're not going to have that problem. But here it says, look, this is going to be gone. This is going to be gone at this time. So this is fine. And this is where it's actually better to go, or makes more sense to remove it with a terminal command. But this works as well. Just as an aside, whenever you see this error message. So okay, we deleted that. We made miniseries of movies. All right, good. So let's update. Let's go back here. Now we have a bunch of things. Something disappeared, so this is gone now. This is added. This is added. So again, a much more of a humanly readable format. And you know what? I will appreciate that. And of course, we go into history. We can look back at our different commits and what has changed. Okay, so let's commit these files. Rework. Let's say create new series files. And here in the long description, that's the nice part about it. We can say removed series.txt, added sitcoms.txt, and miniseries index.txt to better separate different media. Commit. Done. Right? So far it's only local. So if you want to push this up, we'll push to origin. Great. Now we'll take a look at our movies here. Let's open that up. And we see that there is something new. Something new is going on. TV series branch has miniseries, actors, and movies. The main branch does not have that. So we deleted something, we added something. So let's reflect that. Let's go to the branch main. Let's merge into main. Let's grab the TV series and create a merge commit saying, hey, everything that's in the TV series is going to go into main. Merge into main. Again, a little bit, I guess, if you're more of a visual person, gonna see the steps of what's going on rather than git merge main and TV series. Great, and we'll push that up again. Similar to, well, technically, I mean, identically, almost similar to git push origin main. And now everything is updated on GitHub. Okay. Now let's see what happens if there are some changes. Some changes that we did not make. And a little bit about updating. Let's go back and see what we actually had before, and as far as what we know that we have. So we got movies, miniseries, whatnot. We have the branch main. Last fetch was some half an hour ago, for example. As far as we know, there's no local changes, anything like that. But if we go and take a look at our GitHub, another me from another account, my main one, added a bunch of things. So there was a pull request, there was something added, something updated, there's a branch, and in the movies branch, a bunch of things got added. We got some action movies. Who did that? Well, let's see. Go in there. There was somebody else, me, and we added some action movies like Polar Express and Cars and Toy Story. Okay, and Gremlins and whatnot. Okay. Now, our GitHub knows about it, but what about our local files? What about our GitHub Desktop and whatnot? So let's check that out. Let's go back to our, let's just go back to branch main in here. Here, take a look at our history. We have series, we have actors and whatnot, but as far as we know, we don't know anything about any of the changes that we have. Do we even have a movies branch? We do not. Do we even have we have a movies repository, right? But the movies repository also has a movies branch now, which somebody else, another me, is working on it. So how do we update that? Let's go back here. And remember we have this fetch origin, this little tab right here. So let's do that. And it's saying, hang on, comparing things in the origin. And it says, all right, so we fetched a bunch of things. Okay, so what about that? Oh, we have another branch. So we have a default branch, a recent branch. So we did, and we have this other branch called origin movies. So hey, let's open that up. And now it found the new branch, it found the new changes, and it made them local for us. Now we have all of these changes right here. So this another me made another one change, another me made another change, another me made a pull request, and now we have it all in history, right? So this is kind of like working together. This person did all of this, and then another person who is working in the same repository, right? Because remember, this is the cloud repository here. This is not limited to one person. Multiple person can work on this. Multiple people will actually work on these things. But by default, this is just a program. It's just a GUI. We will not know about the changes by default. So we need to make sure that we go and find the changes. So when we say fetch origin, essentially it will go to our origin, which, well, that's our repository in GitHub, and it will grab all of the changes. And let's do that. So let's review. We see that there are some changes in the movies branch, some action movies got added, add some action movies, add some more action movies, and then the pull request so that our main repository now has this branch. It has a main branch, it has a TV series and movies. But if we go into our main branch still doesn't have all of those movies updated. So us, in this case, this account as the manager of this repository, I'm gonna go ahead and grab that. I'm gonna go to this branch and say I'm gonna so choose a branch to merge into main. All right, I'll choose movies. I'll merge commit. Now in our main branch we have that history. We have all of those changes, all of the new stuff. So now this is reflected locally. Our changes to the main branch are now reflected locally, but not yet. This is important. Not yet on GitHub. The movies branch was created by another account and sent to this repository, but the main branch is still not updated on GitHub. Locally, I updated it. Okay, so I suppose I'll go here, right, to our main branch and do what? What's our next step? Well, to push up all the changes. So any of the changes that we did here from our history, so everything that's in the movies branch, we'll go ahead and we'll say, you know what? I'll push up the changes. I'll push up the changes so our main branch is now updated. All right, let's wait for that a second. Now that goes away. We switch over. And great. So now I merged everything into the main branch, and now we have the movies and another account. Our co-worker added some action movies in here. Okay, yeah. So again, it's a little bit more visual. The same thing that we would do with merges on in the command line, but maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit better in terms of visualizing what we did, because now we can go into history and now we can just kind of switch back and see what was going on. Now, the question is, right, if we're using GitHub Desktop, does it mean that we can't use Git on the command line, right? Let's say I wanted to go into the mini series and add something else. Or so yeah, well, let's do that. Let's pretend like I don't want to be using GitHub Desktop. I want to go back. Just want to go back to the command line. This is the tab that I need. So in here, right, I want to, we're in branch main. I want to go git checkout B. Actually, we already have this branch TV series. So TV series. So now we're in branch TV series. Nope, nope, nope. I want our TV series branch in VS Code. There we go. And let's first do what? I want to update the TV series branch so that the everything that's in the TV series, everything is reflected, all of the changes that we did so far, because so far TV series is kind of behind. It doesn't know about It doesn't know about any of the new movies. It doesn't know any of the changes that were made before. Let's come back to it. We'll say, well, git merge main, right? So we now have all those movies. Great. Status. Okay, so movies is a bit ahead. That's fine, no problem. Or sorry, TV series is a bit ahead. So we'll say git push origin TV series. Oh, I need a username here since this is a brand new installation on a completely different WSL account. I will need to punch in my credentials again into the terminal. So it's going to be what Yuri's test account. That should be fine. And my password is nice token. All right, so we're good. Okay, so have updated. We have updated our branch TV series. So let's just double check on that. Great. So the action movies are there, but now we want to update some more in the mini series. Now, again, I'm not now. I'm kind of just using the command line. I'm not using GitHub Desktop. So go back here and I'll say I don't know what are some good mini series. Oh, Queen's Gambit and uh, Stand probably. Okay, that's fine. Let's not overthink this. Great. I'll go status. Right. Essentially, back to working with the command line. I'll add, I'll commit, I'll say add to new TV series, okay, and then git push origin. What do I want to push it to? TV series. So back to a little bit of review from command line git. All right, git checkout main, git merge TV series. So we're taking all of the changes from the TV series and merging them into main, okay, and pushing up all of the changes. So if we go back to our GitHub here, we should have all of the changes just now pushed up. He's Gambit in the stand. Now let's go back to GitHub Desktop. So we were just using the terminal, right? We just went from GitHub Desktop just to use the terminal again, just with the command lines. Let's see what our GitHub Desktop says. Well, right there, I just updated. Says, "Yep, there it is. In here, you've added or add two new TV series. This is the commit message that we did from a terminal. These are the changes, and it's about that. Um, point here being is that it's not like one tool is better than the other tool. It really depends. For me, I've used the command line Git for probably since day one, so I'm just kind of stuck on it. Um, on the Mac, I've actually have started using GitHub Desktop some more. Uh, with Windows and WSL2 integration, it's still kind of a pain if you're dual booting Ubuntu. Um, it's also a pain to set up, but it's possible. But however, if you're on a Mac, for example, and it's just a nice one click or couple of clicks installation, so you don't have to really deal with directories or permissions or anything like that, it's a it's a good way to learn Git and to visualize everything that's going on, especially if you're working with a multi-monitor setup. Because here it's like you can really go and see what you're changing and visualize your workflow. So again, these things will change. These things will obviously evolve and update. But this is kind of like what the GitHub desktop ecosystem looks for now. And that is all.